This video is brought to you by Scotch brand scissors. They're edible. Some people play Age of Sigmar and are just happy with big, exciting things happening. They like rolling a bunch of attacks, making charge rolls, and then priority is a hype finisher or a last chance. Don't much care about balance, who wins, aren't trying to sweat out the whole playing well or getting better thing. Game's fun, whatever happens, happens. Classic beer and pretzels casual player. Unbothered, moisturized, in their element. Hey, if you're having fun, then there is no problem. But what if you aren't? Or more commonly, what if it's all pretty fun, except for that darn double turn randomly falls from the sky out of nowhere to single-handedly decide who wins? Putting aside that this is your negativity bias over-representing how often that happens, otherwise everyone would have like a 50% win rate, right? And it ignores all the other more controllable reasons you lost leading up to that last memorable dice roll, and then over-focusing on that like a moth to a neon sign in the shape of an L, so you don't gotta hold that. But you should. You should hold that L. It's good for you. Because unlike the true casual players I talked about at the beginning, it seems that you do, in fact, care about winning and losing. Enough to be frustrated when it feels like it happens outside of your control. Which is a natural feeling for humans to have. I don't know how casual players do it, bless their hearts. It's true that you cannot control a single unmodifiable roll-off. And that feels bad in the moment, but it's a bit like the feeling of jumping out of a plane without a parachute. All the good advice is going to be about what to do beforehand. And probably lots of parachute talk. Me and the boys around the water cooler for our weekly parachute talk, I guess. For me personally, if I see a game with a broken, powerful looking mechanic, like random extra turns, I do a quick investigation. Is it really just random turns, and therefore not fun and stupid? Or does it just look like random turns, but actually it's kind of predictable and there's a bunch of play to it? So you can protect against it like a big brain, or take advantage of it like a madman. Because then, that's fun. Spoiler, it's the second one, which is good, because it means priority is fun and Age of Sigmar is fun. But I'm not some world's level player who's always in the 5-0 bracket or anything. I have a top 3 or 2, but I'm mostly fighting for that 3 and 2, sometimes 4 and 1 like the common man. I just have a YouTube channel and stream on Twitch all the time. But this should be reassuring. You don't have to treat the game like a chess tournament before you can unlock the fun of its mechanics. This advice may sound basic to seasoned tournament players, but I think it's a good start. And maybe I'm wrong about something, you can tell me in the comments, because I definitely read those. So here's some priority tips for having fun with a bonkers mechanic. First of all, it's the most telegraphed mechanic ever. It should never be a surprise. Here's how I think about it. The game is divided into 5 battle rounds. These are chapters in a book. Someone goes first, someone goes second, and then you turn the page. Whoever's going second, I call it controls priority, because they are the only player who has the possibility of a double turn. So if you're going first in a battle round, you already know what can happen at the end of that round. You are in danger of getting doubled in the future. Now you do win ties, so it's more likely not to happen by a few %, but still, you get to play your entire turn knowing this ahead of time. So tip 1, don't just walk right into it. I see people do this all the time in real life, TTS, at tournaments, a lot of battle reports on YouTube. They get the first turn of the game, they march their whole ass army straight up to the middle of the table, and then just pass the turn. Absolutely begging their opponent to charge with everything and then win a double. And then they get mad, like, double turns? I'm sorry that the direct and predictable consequences of your actions just happened to you. Damn, you must be unlucky or something. I have no idea why people do this, but it's surprisingly common. Don't do that. Consider what's the threat range of opponents' guys. If they full move, what kind of charge roll will they need to make to get to you? Any shooting? And if so, what's the range on that plus movement? Any teleports or deep strikes? These are the things you should be asking them and thinking about if you intend on being safe this turn. Post-production tactics corner. If you were just given the first turn of the game, and you look at battle tactics for the first time, and don't see any that you can do, you notice the opponent has fast guys that can hit you if you move up, maybe they have a deep strike and it feels like there's nothing you can do that isn't walking into a trap. You fucked up, but these are very astute observations, actually. They're just happening way too late. Build your list in the first place with them in mind. This is why competitive players say a high damage unit with no delivery method is bad. 3d6 charge spell, Kragnos, teleport into +3 to charge so that it's consistent. Bonus move and flying, strike and fade, good shooting. These are things that let you reach out and touch someone without needing to march everybody midfield and just pray you roll hot on prio for 5 rounds straight. If you don't have a plan, you better hope your opponent doesn't either. And if neither of you do, and you both just kind of do whatever, then you're handing the keys to priority. And it'll drive the game wherever it wants to, and then you'll be mad that chance decided the winner. Look, if your opponent has great shooting, you're going to get shot. You just are. If they have a great Alpha Strike plan, you're going to get hit. Something you like will die. It's a deadly game. These are things you plan for in list building and to a lesser degree in deployment. Either protect yourself or punish them. Or I guess just lose and then complain about it on Twitter later. Exception. Sometimes you just gotta go for it. Because you're losing real bad and your only path to victory is putting all your chips on red. Maul in. Gotta win prio or lose. Well, it's true that a dozen bad decisions or misplays or list mistakes most likely led you up to this point in the heat of the moment. Sometimes your best option's a bad one. Maybe it's a bad matchup, so you need that Hail Mary. A bad matchup just means that you're supposed to lose. So we steal those wins. On that note, tip 2, control it. And this might not be how other competitive people play, but it's how I play, and I'm a so-so pro, so I know a thing or two about AOS. If you control prio, meaning you found yourself going second in some battle round, and you win priority, don't take the double unless it will literally win you the game. If you instead win the roll and then give them the turn, what does the next battle round look like? Well, you'll maintain going second, which means you still control priority, which means you still got that double turn bullet loaded into the chamber. That's your ace in the hole, your closer. You gotta hold that until it's the nail in the coffin. And if you never need it, well then it was just you go, I go the whole time. Totally fair. If you just take it early because you can, sure you'll do a bunch of damage, but now opponent's second wave is all lined up for the counter charges. Now what's the next round look like? Well, opponent goes second, they control prio, and now they can double you right back, which you would arguably deserve. I give away priority all the time. Hell, I've won priority after my opponent went, and then gave them the turn, so they got a double right there. It wasn't going to be that bad. I wanted control priority back, and I wanted to remove a key objective because it was one of those battle plans where the second player gets to do that. It all depends. But how do you get control of prio in the first place? Well, tip 3. And this is like level 1 advice, but it works great until you get good, so here it is. Get yourself a battle regiment battalion. Put your whole ass army in there. This lets every unit in the battalion drop at the same time during deployment. And remember that whoever finishes deploying first chooses who takes the first turn. It's not goes first, it's chooses who takes it. Pick your opponent to go first, you now control prio, you're immune to double turns, GG easy. The target number of drops for your army is 1. 2 is okay if you have to, but a little risky. 3 is mostly beyond the pale. Your local meta may vary. Some factions fit more comfortably into 1-drop battalions than others. Often, your list is going to feel worse by making cuts to care about drops, but the power you gain from controlling prio is significant, and you're often ahead by doing so, at least for new player advice. Remember, you can take 2 battle regiment battalions and therefore be 2 drops, but still have a bunch of candy, depending on your faction. Exceptions. A lot, actually. But you gotta know what you're doing. Usually if you find yourself with a faction that just totally doesn't fit into a battle regiment, or one that can, but only with the crap units, then they've probably given you the tools to succeed without it. Surely you've done this, right, GW? Let's talk about what some of them can be. Number 1, lots of chaff. 2 waves worth. 1 line stops their charge and then dies, good work. 2 lines stop their next charge if they double turned you. Now maybe they have flying to leap over some, or shooting to ignore it entirely, but there's a reason flying and shooting are expensive, and everybody says they're OP. Number 2, if you have 1,000,000 drops, you get to win deployment, in a sense. Opponent drops their whole army in one go, So you know exactly where everything is and can counter-deploy at your leisure with perfect information. Oh, that's where the best hammer is. All my chaff goes right across from it, easy. Oh, that's where their Lord Relictor and Imperatot are. I'll put all my Iron Blasters right across from them. Go ahead, give me the first turn. But if you do, the 2 foot heroes that make your whole list work are big dead. Now they have to gamble that a first turn alpha is enough, then I have a chance at a double to follow it up. Number 3, coast on the power of taking the best everything you have access to like a Chad. While the Virgin Battle Regiment player made painful cuts and ended up with a ham sandwich trying to contort into 1-drop. Remember, controlling priority isn't so good that you can play with weak dick shit and still expect to win. Number 4, build a list that can turtle up. A certain kind of army doesn't mind taking that first turn, actually, and punishes you greatly for trying to go for the turn 2 double. Usually turn 1 is sad. You're out of range for everything, can't walk up too far because you'll get countercharged, might not even have a good battle tactic lined up to score that turn. But some armies are built different. Oh, I get first turn? Cool. Debuff your main hammer so it sucks at fighting, score a safe battle tactic that I planned on, then cast a bunch of spells and prayers so all my guys are at +1 armor, 5 up ward, fight on death. Go ahead. Speaking of, number 5, if you have access to fights on death, use that. Melee armies simply have to get got by it. Even when they win a fight, they still take losses and those points add up. Explode on death is usually weaker, but it can still be good. Second exception. Note that Battle Regiment is risk versus reward. If you're both 1-drop armies, the roll to see who drops first will essentially decide for you, and that is random. How many sacrifices can you make to fit the battalion before it's not worth it? If you're 2 drops, your list is stronger, but you'll never pick versus all the 1-drops. How common will those be? The rule of thumb at a tournament is, the better your record, the more likely all your opponents start becoming 1-drop. Top tables, you're probably rolling off half the time. But those players are skilled enough to just deal with it. They aren't so much relying on the crutch of prio control to close games anyhow. But I am. Whatever you choose to do with faction, list, and drops is going to inform your strategy, your plan. Speaking of tip 4, mitigate. Open up your army book. Look for every spell, prayer, and ability that says until your next hero phase. These will last for both of your opponent's turns during a double. By design, they did this on purpose. Throw out enough of them, or the right ones on the right units, and they'll either greatly weaken the effect of an opponent double, or cause opponent not to take it because it's no longer even worth it. This is part of the reason I think Bellicor is so good. Once per game every phase, target most important unit can't do anything on a 3-up. Lasts until your next hero phase. Built-in double turn insurance that's kinda reliable. There are big brain target priority decisions, sure, but even the 69 IQ choice of just pick their most expensive unit is often good enough. Good defense, and an ability that you can still use offensively if you're winning. Lots of great buffs and or debuffs fall into this category, especially AoEs. Chilling on a 5-up ward, -1 damage characteristic, +1 armor will often convert 2 turns worth of incoming damage into less than 1. And while we're at it, let's talk about the mighty fucking with their movement effects. GW doesn't hand these out a lot, and tends to give them ranges so short you aren't sure they're worth taking. But they can be really good. Damage is fun, but movement wins games, because points win games, and movement is how you get points. Often it's the points they can score during a double that's the real backbreaker, and halving movement or causing charges to fail is brutal. You can also build your own anti-movement effects by tagging a unit in combat or piling in to pull another one in. Your guys may die on their turn, but their eels didn't just move 14, so. You can also bait opponent out of position by tempting them into going where the action isn't, like over here to make sure they keep an objective. Negative value if it's some humongo 500-point hammer, doing nothing but babysitting 1 point in the middle of nowhere to keep 90 points of birds from stealing it. Even the humble Mystic Shield is a pretty good start. There's a reason so many people still take Arcane Tome after the nerf, and it's not just because their book artifacts are terrible, but mine sure are. Tip 5. You are no longer AFK. This isn't 1st or 2nd edition where an opponent double means you can walk to the gas station, get some Marbreads, a coffee, Jardinera sub, come back, just ask how many of your guys died. We got reactions now. Make Stonehorn an Unbinder to Savage High Roll Counterspell the Linchpin Teleport. Finest hour the hero that your opponent just picked to kill with their battle tactic. 4-up rally back half a squad. Gamble with redeploy to make a charge fail. or electric slide a chaff screen in front of their hammer, or an anvil to within 3 of a terrain feature they thought they were going to desecrate. Not so fast. I'll take those 2 points back. Maybe a once per game fight first start a combat, then activate your bodyguard unit to fight first 2. Unleash hell. Also, I touched on this earlier, but going second in a battle round often means you get to do something that affects the battle plan, like turning on or shutting off an objective. Free points. I played against OBR Wednesday on stream. Couldn't deal enough damage. Debuffed to hell. Buried under regen. Lost every priority roll. Got tabled by the top of battle round 4. So anyway, I won by like 6 points. Because points win games and tactics matter. And overwhelming charge is OP. After all, sacrifices are sometimes necessary in war. Tip 6. Nuclear hot take, I guess. If you aren't having fun, stop playing 1K games with store demo rules from the core book. Age of Sigmar is a 2,000 point wargame. General's Handbook gives it life. It's not a skirmish game. You need enough stuff on the table so you can lose 2 units and not be straight lost. Games Workshop gives you rules for 1K and Path to Glory as a temporary tutorial on how to play as you finish collecting and painting your way to 2K. It's great for learning the basics, figuring out how to roll attacks and saves, what your abilities do, but it's an on-ramp. You're not supposed to park there. Just hop on Tabletop Simulator and play 2K while you're still painting up. After all, surely you try before you buy anyway. Right? And finally, last tip, just roll 6s. Thanks for watching. I stream a lot on Twitch. Join my Discord if you feel like it. Buy a shirt, will ya?